Why you procrastinate language learning, a beginner's guide. So basically, I'm not going to waste your time, guys. The feelings of procrastination and kind of like a lack of motivation and, all those things are very, very common when it comes to language learning, particularly in beginners who are learning their kind of first foreign language. And chances are there have been tons of times when you've gone, it could have been days, it might have been weeks, and potentially even months without actually doing anything in the language that you're supposedly learning, and then you've probably forgotten a lot of it, which is really, really frustrating. So by the end of this video, you'll understand how to stop procrastinating and how to actually commit to the language you're learning. And yeah, so these steps are kind of useful in any part of life, but I'm going to kind of tailor it to language learning. So if you do like this kind of educational content on language learning, definitely hit the subscribe button, but let's go. So why do you put off language learning to begin with? There are a bunch of micro reasons, but there are mainly two big reasons why you would put off studying in your language, and those two reasons are motivation and organization. Motivation is basically you feel like doing it, like you're kind of amped for language learning, like you're not like kind of going, oh, I don't really want to do it today. And organization is planning it in so that you're not actually missing the day that you're supposed to be like doing it, if that makes sense. Like if you're not organized, you're just going to be consistently running out of time. And yeah, basically, if you're not organized, unless it's at the very front of your mind, like kind of like eating and like sleeping and things like that, you're kind of just going to miss it because it's not planned in properly. So yeah, I'm going to talk about all this, don't worry. So I've already made full guides on both of these things, which I'll have linked in the description below. But I'm basically going to walk you through these things now. So you are welcome to go deeper into it after this, but here we go. So number one, motivation. You've probably wanted to set aside time for language learning and then kind of felt demotivated and put off. So for example, you said you're going to read a chapter of a book today, and then when it comes to doing it, you're like, oh, I don't really want to do it. I'll just do it the next day. And that's extremely common. That's all to do with motivation. So the solution, actually, I'll just walk you through this real quick. The way motivation kind of works that you can visualize is motivation is when you emotionally feel like doing something. Motivation is fuel for your actions, what you do. And then what you do determines the result you end up with. So if you are motivated and you decide, okay, I'm motivated to read, so I'm going to read a few chapters of a book, that's your actions, and that triggers your result, which is you become better at reading because you've been reading. But of course, motivation is the first step in this process. So if you don't have motivation, what will most likely happen is you don't do anything, which means you don't get anywhere as a result. So yeah, this is kind of a really good way to view it, this kind of engine with fuel. Actions is kind of like the engine, and then result is like the product, as in like you're driving the car, for example. So here is how we actually solve that. The solution to motivation is using something called discipline. So we could almost view discipline as, see how motivation is number one, discipline might be number two, like a second fuel source that you can use when motivation has run out. The way discipline works is discipline is doing the hard thing even when you don't feel like it. And I know that doesn't sound like a very good solution, but let me explain. Because obviously it kind of just sounds like I'm telling you just to do it anyway, even if you don't feel like doing it. Don't worry. The reason discipline is a good solution is because it doesn't rely on your feelings, and it's a skill. So motivation isn't really that much of a skill. Discipline is a skill, and like any skill, you only start off with a little bit, but it can be upgraded over time to the point where your discipline is really, really high, and it no longer matters that much if you don't feel like doing something. So the actionable steps for using and building up your discipline are: set yourself one daily task, and it can be stupidly easy if you'd like. So with language learning, you literally could set yourself the task of reading one sentence tomorrow. And even if you don't, you know how like if I set you a really small task, like walk outside and touch the letterbox and walk back in. If I set you a really easy task, even if you don't feel like doing it, you can kind of just force yourself to do it because you have at least some discipline. You're not like a complete, like, I don't know what word I was looking for, but you know what I mean. So if you set yourself the task of doing one sentence, write it down with like a little box next to it, then do it and then tick it off. It's only small. You can force yourself to do it even when you don't feel like it. That is actually you building your discipline because you're starting off at level 1, very, very small. You tick it off, and then eventually you can set yourself a slightly harder task. You can say, I'm going to read a paragraph each day, and then you can start ticking that off. And over time, maybe you get to reading a chapter and you'll look back and be like, reading one sentence was stupidly easy. I can't believe I had to start at that. And that's good. That means your discipline is actually increasing. So if you do have any questions with that, comment down below, because I understand it might be a bit hard to wrap your head around. But yeah, over time, building discipline is extremely good. And yeah, I would highly recommend that is what you do. The second reason that you'd be procrastinating is to do with organization. So Organization is just deciding what you need to do to achieve something and then planning to do it. So for language learning, we would decide that, okay, to get better at a language, we need to do any number of things. It could be reading a book, it could be listening to a podcast, it could be flashcards, it could be any one of those things, right? So we decide what we want to do on a daily or weekly basis. This kind of might tie into your discipline thing again if you want to start small, and then plan to do it. So the reason a lot of people mess up is because they don't actually have a written down plan. If you have a goal like language learning, you need to have some kind of plan either written down or typed down somewhere. So the best way to do this, I've found, is to use a habit tracker. A habit tracker is basically something, I've got a few pictures over here, where you have a list of tasks for every single day, and it could literally be one if you want to start off with that, and you just tick off each task as you go. You can see this person's put crosses, this person's colored in the boxes, and it's got things like walk outside, read at 1 page, lift, workout, journal, bed by 11 p.m. These are just random things. People make them for whatever, but you can make it for language learning, and you're basically going to set yourself things like read 1 chapter or listen to 30 minutes of a podcast while running, anything like that. And you just tick it off every single day as you do it, or you can set it on a weekly basis if you want, up to you guys. But yeah, habit trackers do stop you from missing days, and they do ensure that you consistently meet a task, which is extremely useful. And yeah, as I said before, start small and combine with discipline. Try and plan it into an effective daily schedule. You can reward yourself after you do things. And overall, you'll find this is a really, really good way to keep making progress. So if you do have any questions with that, hit me up as well in the comment section. I'll have links to both videos, the habit tracker video and the motivation video, which are like full length videos, definitely longer than this one, and they're for each of those things. So definitely check those out, particularly for the problem that you're having more trouble with out of these two. But yeah, the bottom line is putting off something is a common problem with an easy solution. Combining both of these things is the meta to destroying language learning procrastination. Meta is, of course, most effective tactic available. So yeah, hit the subscribe button, guys, and definitely comment below any questions. I've got links to my videos, plus my website and my Discord in the description. And yeah, have a good one. I appreciate you listening.